little time left, right?
Yes, hi Geshema. Just a minute.
Oh, thank you for your message. Sorry, I didn't respond to your message yet, but
No, it's okay. I
it,
will maybe I will also update everyone now. Can you hear me? Yeah, good. So again, thank you, Geshema, for the teaching. Yes. I'm just starting. I will let everyone know. I just want to let everyone know also about the upcoming weeks. We have on the 27th of the month, in 2 weeks from now, it's the eve of Yom Kippur, so we will not have a class at this date. Other than that, it's okay. And next week, I'm not gonna be here in the class, so Tom will lead the class with you. So that's I think that's it. And of course, again, I'm reminding that if you want to support the teacher and the activity of Friends of the Dharma, I pasted here in the chat the link for PayPal. So thank you very much, Geshema. And
I have one quick question. Should we
yes.
reschedule if there's no class on the 27th? That's Yom Kippur. Should we reschedule the class? I'd be happy to do that if the night before that works better, unless you have other classes. Maybe that would be a possibility to reschedule it. So just.
Okay, so maybe we can talk after the class and I will update everyone.
Great. That's great. Okay, wonderful. So it's okay. So but your voice is loud, but okay, my voice is not loud enough. It's not loud.
I was writing your voice is loud, but Geshe-ma's is not.
It's not. Okay. How's my voice now?
Hello.
Still.
Dharma friend?
Yes. Can you hear me better now?
Nope. It's still muted.
Oh.
It's been muted.
Sure. Is there anything that can be done? Because, well, I don't know how to put up the volume of my voice. I can try something. How about everyone else? Can you hear me clearly, or is it?
Yes.
Volume too low?
We can hear you, and with headphones, we can hear you well.
Great.
Yeah, fine.
All right. So maybe please, for those of you who can't hear well, please use earphones.
I don't have.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I have to get.
You've got, yeah, maybe for next time. But there's nothing here that I can do from my side. So sorry for that. Okay. All right. I don't know what I did. Now I don't see anything anymore, but no problem. I don't need to see anything. Okay, great. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Good, great. I just lost my screen, but never mind. All right, okay. So let's start as usual with some meditation. Doing some breathing meditation just to settle the mind, become more focused on what we're doing here. And then to do a visualization after that, followed by setting the motivation and the prayers. Oh, okay, the prayers I need to see. For some reason, I've lost my screen here. I'm really sorry. I don't know how this could happen. I've got Zoom here. Okay, how am I doing this? Oh yeah, I'm back. Okay, great. Now it's all right. So please let's start with a few moments of breathing. visualize in the space in front of you Buddha Shakyamuni, and then surrounding Buddha Shakyamuni are the great Indian masters such as Nagarjuna, Ayadeva, Asanga, Chandakirti. Even if the visualization is not very clear, but just get a sense of their presence. Their great compassion and wisdom, inspiring us to practice just as they did. And then surrounding us are all sentient beings, quietly sitting around us in the form of humans or animals. And now think that since we have right now such great opportunity to practice the Dharma, to transform our mind, let's do this for the welfare of all sentient beings. Conjoined with the wish for all sentient beings to be free from all their sufferings, all their limitations. Generate a feeling of affection and closeness towards all sentient beings. That basically just want to be happy and don't want to suffer. And generate the wish, may I be able to free them from all their suffering. And in order to accomplish that, may I myself become a fully enlightened Buddha for the welfare of all these limitless sentient beings. While we hold on to this motivation, let's recite the refuge in Bodhicitta prayer, followed by the four measurables. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the accumulation of merits of practicing generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the accumulation of merits of practicing generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the accumulation of merits by practicing generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. And the four measurables. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings never be separated from happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. Okay. So let's continue with the text. Entry into the middle way. And what I'd like you to do, of course, as part of this course, and this is why I don't like to take a break. Actually, I just want to continue with it to keep that flow. Because what I would like you to do is to take whatever you learn here into your daily life. So I've said that on many occasions. I've talked about this quite a bit. We've tried to bring great compassion into our own life, bodhicitta last time. And so every time I'd like you to do something, and whatever you learn, to not just allow it to be something academic that you study, but something that you actually bring into your own life. So we're actually following the bodhisattva path, even though we're not bodhisattvas. I mean, I don't know if in your case, of course, you may be very advanced, but myself being a total beginner, still, it's just the power of the mind. The power of the mind is such that even if we're far from having compassion and love and bodhicitta, of course, we don't have these minds, but we can go through the notion of generating them and habituating ourselves and learning through our own experience what we still need to do, what we need to focus on. But I also believe it gives us this experience. It creates great joy, and it already enables us to remove some of the hindrances, some of the obstacles that we face anyway. So whatever practice we do, the more dedicated we are to our own practice, the more obstacles we'll face. But as His Holiness always says, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, he always talks about the most important part of Buddhist practice, the most important practices. They can all be summarized into the two: bodhicitta and the understanding of emptiness. And that's what I would like you to continue working on. So with the meditations we do here, of course, but more importantly, bring it into your own life. Really make this effort. I'll continue giving you practices and to try and do them as much as you can to really make an effort. All right, having said that, so far we've spoken first about homage, paying homage. Chandakirti starts off with the text paying homage to great compassion. So you had the opportunity to learn about great compassion, about the different types. And having finished that, which basically speaks also about the first two levels of the bodhisattva path, the path of accumulation, the path of preparation, without really teaching them, but in terms of compassion as it's described, the kind of causes and conditions for Buddhahood, well, they are mainly from the point of view of the path of accumulation and the path of preparation. As you've heard last time, Those are the two levels of a bodhisattva path. After you generated the wish to become enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings, once you've got that aspiration, then you enter the bodhisattva path. And on those first two levels, you work on enhancing your wisdom, that strengthen your wisdom, understanding emptiness. And of course, we don't understand, well, some of you may, but in general, I guess most of us don't know what emptiness is. But because we don't, we need to reflect on it again and again. And like I said, this will be part of your practice. Now, for a bodhisattva, once they reach the next level, the path of seeing, so path of preparation, path of accumulation, path of preparation, once you've gone beyond those, once you reach the path of seeing, you become an Arya. That is, you are someone who realizes emptiness or the ultimate nature of all phenomena directly. You have a direct experience of selflessness. And this is where the text here actually starts. It starts with this first level. And as you may remember from last time, path of seeing and path of meditation, those are the two levels that follow from the path of accumulation and path of preparation. So you have then those two, path of seeing, path of meditation, and that can be subdivided into 10 levels. And the entry into the middle way, Chandrakirti's text here, each chapter is named after one of those levels, one of those what they're called grounds, so bhumis or grounds. So the first ground is the great joyful one. The great joyful one, which, as you've already heard, is when practitioners generate not just the joy they have anyway, but because of their direct experience of emptiness, they generate an extraordinary joy. Joy that comes along with peace of mind, with being calm, being satisfied, and in that way being able to continue practicing most effectively. All right, so joy, of course, is very much part of Buddhist practice. It's important to have that sense of joy. Of course, sometimes things are difficult, we have obstacles, there are problems, etc. But this deep sense of joy, having a sense, I'm doing the right thing, I'm on the right path. It's not easy, I know that, but whatever obstacles there are, I'm going to just face them and continue doing what I've been doing so far. So that sense of satisfaction and joy, that should enhance as you continue doing your practice. And that can be your measuring tape, if you like. Am I getting really depressed and unhappy during practice? Well, there's definitely something wrong. And we should therefore be more reflective on what we're doing, about our own mind, and make the necessary adjustments. But anyway, on that level, then you reach, once you realize emptiness directly, once you've got that direct experience conjoined with, and I explained to you what it means to be conjoined with bodhicitta, how these two minds, even though only one of them is actually operating, only one of them is actively there, the other one, while it lies dormant, can have a great influence on the other. Okay, and so for a bodhisattva, his or her practices are always conjoined with bodhicitta. His or her practices are always influenced by the wish to become a Buddha for the welfare of all sentient beings. All their practices are always conjoined with great compassion, with the wish for all sentient beings to be free from any type of suffering, any type of limitation, the three types of sufferings, and so forth. All right, so this we should emulate. We should try and do the same thing, kind of pretend we're bodhisattvas. To go through these notions, going through the motion of being a bodhisattva, just to train our mind in that same way. So now we are on the path of seeing. Think that you've now reached the first ground. So to really put yourself into the shoes of a bodhisattva, to really understand this. And this is not just made up. Actually, our entire study was made of this. We would always put ourselves into the shoes of a person of the Chittamatra school or the Prasangika or the Vaibhashika to learn and understand where these different philosophical schools came from. So that practice already exists. In Tantra, you visualize already yourself to be a Buddha, but we don't even need to go into that profound practice of Tantra. No, but just as part of this, you already go through the motion, you can get a sense of what does it mean to be a Bodhisattva. All right. So for now you are on the path of seeing. You're on the first level. You've realized emptiness directly for the first time. Just this morning, you went into the meditation and you had this direct experience. You tasted emptiness. And there's this great joy in your mind. But of course, there are other qualities, and we discussed them last time. The qualities that now you have attained. And those can be divided into the qualities that beautify your own mental continuum, right? Such a beautiful term, like to beautify a person's mental continuum. I'm sure you all have experiences of that. When you meet someone, they may physically not be beautiful, but when you get to know them, their character, their personality is just so beautiful that before long, no matter how they externally look like, you see them as beautiful. So there are certain qualities, love, compassion, wisdom, that beautify a person's mental continuum, so that even externally they have this glow, they have this radiance, and they appear as beautiful. So here, this is not an ordinary case. Like we have examples of ordinary people, and maybe not so ordinary, who knows? But the point is here that there are these qualities that beautify your own mental continuum. What are they? Well, just to summarize them, now you're born in the Arya Bodhisattva lineage. You're not just a Bodhisattva, you've entered this Arya Bodhisattva, these special beings. You're no longer an ordinary being. You've gone beyond being an ordinary. Even on the path of accumulation, path of preparation, you were still considered to be ordinary. Why? Because your self-grasping was stronger than your understanding of reality. Now, your understanding of emptiness, this has now become stronger than your misapprehension, because the mind has already, even the first time. So let's say this morning you generated the realization of emptiness, direct realization of emptiness for the first time. So since this morning, you are an Arya. You're an Arya Bodhisattva. And you've already you've already eliminated certain misapprehensions of reality. You've already eliminated certain afflictive emotions. You've certainly eliminated the three fetters, as you've heard last time, the three binding factors, or the three fetters, whichever you want to call them. So first is the intellectually acquired self-grasping, intellectually acquired holding on to a self. So the one that you were not born with, but the one that is developed as part of your own philosophy, as part of your culture, as part of your understanding of who you are, of how other people exist, and so forth. So that you've gotten rid of. You also got rid of choosing the wrong path, if you like considering kind of wrong practices, wrong inferior moral standards and conducts to be superior, to be beneficial to spiritual practice. You've gotten rid of those, and you've gotten rid of doubts about liberation, about your goal, and so forth. So all this you've gotten rid of, and in that way, your main obstacles towards the road or the path towards enlightenment, you got rid of. Okay, as I said last time. So these are compared to not wanting to go. So as long as there is intellectually quiet self-grasping, you do not have the wish to be liberated, because you don't want to get rid of that self. So there's always still, you would not be as motivated, not be as motivated, because there would still be that kind of hesitation, which you get rid of once you get rid of intellectually acquired self-grasping. So that would be like not wanting to go. Then choosing the wrong road would be holding on to inferior or harmful moral standards and conduct. That would be like following the wrong road. And of course, having doubts, this road, that road, never being able to make a decision about where to go. That's the type of afflictive doubt you eliminate on that level. So you got rid of that. All right, that was the second quality. Then you experience great joy. Already mentioned that. Since this morning, you have a level of joy that you've never experienced before. You're able to move thousands of worlds, like not move as in like physically cause an earthquake. That's what it sounds like. But rather, you're able to really move people with your character, with your personality. There are different interpretations of that, but like I said last time, that's the interpretation I received from some of my teachers, and I found that most helpful. So you're really able to make a difference, to change people. All right, that's what it says in verse 6. And then verse 7, well, you continue from one path to the next. You're not satisfied, in the sense that you're so driven by compassion for sentient beings. Of course you're happy. I reached this level, but there's more work to be done for the welfare of all sentient beings. All right, so there's that. And then it goes on to say, this is verse 7 now, stepping on from one ground to another. He, the Bodhisattva, or she, the Bodhisattva, travels perfectly to the higher ones. Okay, so that level. At that point, the path to all lower levels or to all lower realms are blocked for him or her. Okay, here it just says him. That's the second line of verse 7, which means no longer can a Bodhisattva be reborn in the lower realms. Okay, so actually, there was a time even before the path of seeing, even before on the path of preparation, there was a time when there was no rebirth any longer in any of the kind of suffering states, but only because the causes and conditions didn't come together. They didn't come together. And this will become hopefully clearer as we go along. But now, no longer, it's not a matter on the path of seeing, it's not a matter of the causes and conditions not coming together. It's a matter of the causes and conditions not being there any longer. So you've eliminated already enough of obstructions that the causes now to be reborn in a lower state, such as in the animal realm or the preta realm or what have you, none of those causes, these main causes are no longer there, and therefore you cannot be reborn there. And there's no going back to the ordinary. So at that point, all the grounds of ordinary persons cease for you in this case. So you can no longer go back. There's no going back. There's no falling back. And then it's summarized by the last line when it says, he, that is the Bodhisattva, or there is, number 7, he, or a Bodhisattva, he is described. It says his is described. No, it should be he is described. There's a typo. He's described clearly in terms akin to the 8th Arya. Okay. Now, this is a slightly difficult idea, the 8th Arya. Now, some technical explanation needs to be given here. I said earlier that a Bodhisattva, once they reach the path of seeing, then all they've got left is the path of meditation and thereafter enlightenment. However, this period of the path of seeing and the path of meditation, they can be subdivided into 10 grounds, 10 further levels, as I've said last time, as I explained last time. So 10 grounds. Now, this is true for a Bodhisattva. And the question may arise, well, what about a person who does not follow the universal vehicle, or the Sanskrit vehicle, if you like? Mahayana is not a word I like to use, just because of, well, this Holiness advice not to use it, and because of the connotation the word has. But in the universal vehicle, where the goal is full enlightenment, well, once you reach the Arya level, once you realize emptiness directly, there are 10 levels. Now, how about those who do not follow the Bodhisattva path, who do not aim for enlightenment, but aim for liberation? Only liberation, not full enlightenment. So a practitioner who aims for liberation, which is an incredible goal. I mean, a person who is actually dedicated on this path must have incredible renunciation, compassion, love, and so forth. And similar to the Bodhisattva path, this person also goes through, this time not the bodhisattva path of accumulation, path of preparation, no, but the Pali tradition, if you like, or the foundational, if you like, foundational path of accumulation, path of preparation, path of seeing, and path of meditation. And so again, on the path of seeing, path of meditation, on that level, those two levels, they can also be subdivided further into other levels. But they're not 10 levels, they're 8 levels. 8 levels. And you may have heard of them. The vocabulary probably sounds familiar. The 8 levels. What are those 8? Well, there can be divided into 4. Those 4 you're probably familiar with, and each one of them again divided. Stream enterer, once returner, never returner, and foe destroyer. Whereas we're actually the 8th, the last one, is not part of the path of meditation of the foundational vehicle, the Hinayana, or foundational or Theravada vehicle, but it's already the state of a liberated person. So, in other words, once a person on the foundational path, on the path towards self-liberation, once they reach the path of seeing, then there are 2 levels of a stream enterer, 2 levels of a once returner, 2 levels of a never returner, and then 1 level of a foe destroyer that is still part of a person who's on the path, and then the 8th level, which is part of being liberated. Those are these 8 levels. And when I said these, like a stream enterer can be divided into someone approaching the stream enterer result, and then the resultant stream entering, or the stream enterer, the resultant stream enterer, or just stream enterer, the stream entering state, if you like. So stream in the sense of realizing emptiness directly, just as the bodhisattva, a person who wishes to be self-liberated, needs to realize emptiness directly. And the mind of a person who wants to become liberated because of this aspiration, their direct realization of emptiness, which is conjoined with this aspiration to become self-liberated, will be strong enough, will be effective enough to eliminate just what is possible, what is necessary to reach that goal. So that is the power of the mind. If you wish to use your realization of emptiness, your direct realization of emptiness, if you wish to use that to become self-liberated, then this realization of emptiness will eliminate exactly what you need to be self-liberated. I said that before. I said that during one of the last classes. Liberation as well as enlightenment, there are states not where you gain something new, but there are states where you eliminate what is in the way to reaching those states. There are certain types of awareness that are part of our mind, part of our psychological makeup, that are not supposed to be there. They're not supposed to be there. They're not even in the nature of our mind. They're just there, and they're extra, and they cause us to suffer. And what is the basic awareness that's not supposed to be there, that's causing us to suffer, is our misapprehension of reality. It's this belief, it's this grasping that phenomena exist in and of themselves, inherently, independently, and objectively. That is this root misapprehension that gives rise to all these other afflictive minds that cause us unnecessary suffering. And that can be eliminated. This misapprehension can be eliminated by the mind that understands the opposite of inherent existence, the lack of inherent existence, the lack of independent existence. In other words, emptiness, which is called emptiness, the lack of inherent, intrinsic, inherent, objective existence. Well, that mind is that mind, the mind that realizes that, in terms of its object, which is the lack of such independent existence, stands in terms of its object in direct contradiction to this basic misapprehension, which holds phenomena to exist independently. All right. So therefore, it makes total sense. A mind that in terms of its object is the exact opposite to this basic misapprehension. That's the only mind that can remove this misapprehension. And I sometimes give the example, if you believe there's a ghost under your bed, for instance, if you believe there's a ghost under your bed, and there's no ghost under your bed, but you believe there is, which leads to all sorts of, well, you can't sleep at night, you're scared, you're worried, it leads to all these problems. The only way to get rid of that misapprehension that there's a ghost underneath your bed is to look. And if you don't find a ghost underneath your bed, then that mind that understands the absence of a ghost in your mind, it's the solution to your problem. And the same is true here. The same is true with regard to the misapprehension of reality. So that is in the way. We don't understand how phenomena really exist. We have an active misapprehension of reality. The only way to get rid of it is the direct perception, the realization of how phenomena actually exist. All right. That being the case, it can now eliminate what is in the way. But this is where the method comes in. If you wish to eliminate as much, if you want to become self-liberated, then you conjoined with that wish is your direct realization of emptiness, and that eliminates exactly that much. And as a result, you become self-liberated. But if, in comparison to that, you're on the Bodhisattva path, and not only do you want to be liberated, but you want to become enlightened for the welfare of all sentient beings, then your realization, your direct realization of emptiness will serve as a tool that will not just eliminate what's in the way to be liberated, but it will eliminate what's in the way to become enlightened, which is slightly more. There's a little bit more to be eliminated in comparison to just being liberated. So if you want to become fully enlightened, you need to eliminate more than that, and we come to talk about this. But this, I want you to understand that the method means this aspiration, this wish to reach a certain goal, that guides your vacuum cleaner, which is the direct realization of emptiness. Your vacuum cleaner is kind of like the direct realization of emptiness is like your mental vacuum cleaner. It eliminates what you need to eliminate to reach your goal. And it is your aspiration, which goal you want to attain, that real deep wish to reach that goal, that determines the strength of that vacuum cleaner, how much it can actually remove from your mind. All right. Having understood that, for a person who wishes to only be self-liberated, there are these levels actually 8 of them: an approacher to being a stream enterer, and the person who has become a stream enterer, right? That's the first 2 levels: approaching the stream entering, and becoming a stream enterer. Those are the first 2 levels. Then stream enterer as the stream of direct realization of emptiness. Then the next is the once returner. That's a person who once returns to this desire realm, who's reached such a state that they will take one more rebirth in samsara, not in the lower realms, but as a human or as a celestial being, but in the desire realm. And we'll talk more of the realms, but called the desire realm. They have one more rebirth. And there again is an approaching part of that. First you reach the approaching level, and then the actual once returner level. And thereafter, there's the level of the never returner. No longer will you be reborn in the desire realm. There's the approaching aspect and the resultant aspect. And then the next level is the level of a foe destroyer, of a person who's liberated. Foe is The foe is here what's in the way to becoming liberated. That's the foe or the enemy. So an enemy destroyer, a foe destroyer. And that person, they're first an approacher, and then the 8th level is when they actually reach liberation. Those are these 8 levels, okay? There are 8 levels. These 8 levels for a person on the self-liberation path, if you count them from, in terms of the cause, what gives rise to the first, what gives rise to the next, like in terms of their causal or sequential arisal, you would have to count. The first one would be the stream enterer, the approaching stream enterer level. That would be the first one. But you can count it in terms of superiority, in terms of which one is the highest. The highest is the result of a stream enterer. If you count them backwards, the 8th is the approaching level of a stream enterer. Does that make sense? So of the 8th level, approaching stream enterer, approaching once returner, approaching never returner and never returner, approaching foe destroyer and foe destroyer. So these 8 levels, if you consider a foe destroyer the higher and you count from the highest down to the initial level, you end up with the approaching stream enterer. All right, having given all that explanation, that's what it says here. A bodhisattva is described clearly in terms of similar, here Aiken means similar, to the 8th area. So here, once you're on the bodhisattva level, you're similar in terms of your understanding of emptiness to a person who's on the path to self-liberation, who's now entered the stream enterer approach, the approacher of the stream entering level. You're similar. So you're therefore like this 8th level. You're on that 8th level. So if you compare the two, the Hinayana, or I should say the fundamental vehicle path to self-liberation and the bodhisattva path, here this bodhisattva on that first level, they're similar to this 8th level in terms of the self-liberation person, the person who aims for that. So Chandrakirti compares the two, and he does again later on. But just to explain that, to understand that last line. Okay, all right. So therefore, a bodhisattva has all these different qualities, and to summarize it, they're on the similar level as the person who's on the Theravada path, or on the fundamental path towards self-liberation, in that a person who's directly realized emptiness for the first time on that foundational, on that self-liberation path, they're an 8th, they have reached the 8th level, counted down from the top, which is the approaching stream entering level, and a similar level the bodhisattva has reached. Okay. All right, so I needed a lot of time to just explain that one line, but just because it's a little technical. No worries, the rest of it is not that difficult. Okay, and then after having explained those beautifying qualities, those are the qualities that once you are now bodhisattva, they make your continuum, they beautify your continuum in terms of joy, in terms of your wisdom, in terms of your compassion, and so forth. But then there are also a few qualities, and as I said, Chandrakirti, he compares a bodhisattva now to a person who's on the path towards self-liberation. And he says, even though we've previously said that the bodhisattva on this first ground is similar to this 8th area level, or the person who's on that 8th area level, there's a difference in that, first of all, the bodhisattva outshines a person on the path to self-liberation in terms of their method, in terms of the lineage, it says here, by means of the lineage, by means of the type of practitioner they are. Why? Because that is determined by the aspiration that they follow. All right, as I said, The wisdom realizing emptiness directly. In both cases, you need the understanding realizing emptiness directly, because that's your vacuum cleaner. That removes what's in the way to attaining either liberation or full enlightenment. However, this vacuum cleaner, its strength is determined by your aspiration, what you want to attain. And here the Bodhisattva is said to be, well, superior or outshines this other person. Why? Because in terms of their aspiration, they're not merely aiming for liberation, but they're aiming for full enlightenment, for the welfare of all sentient beings. All right, so this is verse 8. Even when abiding on the first ground of the mind for full awakening. So even when you're on the first ground of the mind for full awakening, like I said before, the first ground is called the first bodhicitta, or the first mind for awakening, mind of enlightenment, or mind of awakening, or bodhicitta, right? So the first ground is described as the first Arya bodhicitta, first ground. So even when abiding on that first ground, a bodhisattva surpasses those born from the sage's speech. Those born from the sage's speech are Shravakas. Those born from the sage's speech, you may remember, I explained this a few lessons before. A person who aims to be liberated, to be self-liberated, either this person is a Shravaka or a Pratyeka Buddha. A Shravaka being someone who's more social, more dependent on the teachings by the Buddha or another teacher, while the Pratyeka Buddha is more kind of a solitary person. So here, therefore, it says that someone, a Bodhisattva on the first ground, surpasses those, outshines those who are Shravakas, born from the sages, from the Buddha's speech, and the Pratyeka Buddhas, through the power of his or her merit. So the merit aspect that comes from the merit you accumulate is the positive potential you accumulate through the aspiration you have. So in this case, the wish to become enlightened for the welfare of all sentient beings. And this merit increases ever more. So bodhisattvas increase more and they have more and more merit. So therefore, what do these first 3 lines of verse 8 tell us? They're saying, if I compare, all right, there was initially with this one line where the bodhisattva is compared to a Hinayana or a person on the self-liberation path. Well, they're similar in that the bodhisattvas are similar in that they're similar to this person on the 8th level, as described earlier. But what's the difference? Well, in terms of their aspiration, in terms of the merit they accumulate, they outshine those practitioners on the self-liberation path. That's what it says in those 3 lines. And then it says, the next line is, when at gone afar, he will also, the bodhisattva, will also surpass them by his intelligence. Now that is again one sentence that's a little bit difficult. It's not saying that the bodhisattva on the first ground outshines a person on the self-liberation path in terms of their wisdom. Why not? Because they have the same wisdom. They realize emptiness directly. So in terms of wisdom here, specifically in terms of realizing reality, in terms of understanding how phenomena really exist, with respect to that, they're the same. Like I said, what you need is the same vacuum cleaner, because the root for us, the root cause of not being enlightened, the root cause of not being liberated is our misapprehension. If we didn't have that, we'd be naturally liberated, we'd be naturally enlightened. But we are not liberated, we're not enlightened because we have that root cause, that misapprehension of reality. Now, that which removes it is the same, the understanding of what reality is, the direct experience of that. So bodhisattvas and practitioners on the self-liberation path, well, bodhisattvas on that first level and practitioners of the self-liberation path do not differ with regard to that. But how do they differ? Well, when you say at gone afar is the 7th level. 10 levels of a bodhisattva. The 7th level is called gone afar. Only once you reach that goal, once you reach the 7th, sorry, not goal, that ground, once you reach the ground of a bodhisattva on the 7th level, your wisdom is greater than the wisdom of a person who's on the self-liberation path. Then your wisdom has become special. Why? Because what you can do on that 7th level, not only do you realize emptiness directly, but you can enter the realization of emptiness and come out of it right away. You can go in and come out right away. It within the time period, the length of time that it takes to snap your finger. Okay, very, very short moment. You can go into that direct realization, come out again, which, as you will see as we go along, that flexibility of mind is important. Okay, so therefore here, as the last quality described here as part of verse 8, or the second quality, how a bodhisattva outshines a person who aims towards self-liberation. Well, once they reach the 7th level, they outshine, or their wisdom is greater than the wisdom, in terms of emptiness, greater than a person on the other level. All right, so that's it. It's just a short explanation. It's just citing these qualities. You may find that a little boring. It'll become more juicy and more becomes clearer as we go along. Which is why I want to leave this behind and go to the next aspect. That's when the text really starts, because after these 8 qualities that we've heard before, plus the outshining and so forth, everything we've gone through with this short description of who a bodhisattva. So now you're on the 1st level. You have realized emptiness directly. You've tasted emptiness this morning. Now you're in Arya. Now you are on the 1st level, on the 1st ground. And what is your main practice? What is your main practice? Besides, of course, realizing emptiness, bodhicitta. Well, here it's generosity. Now your practice as a bodhisattva of the different perfections. So we talk about 6 perfections or 10 perfections. 10 perfections means just 6 perfections plus 4 more. All right. And on each level as a bodhisattva, you're exceeding in one of those different perfections. So on the 1st ground, you exceed in generosity. 2nd ground, you exceed in ethical conduct. 3rd, you exceed in patience. Therefore, on the 1st ground, the 1st chapter, after having described great compassion, first of all, then how you get, then on the 1st ground, once you reach the path of seeing, path of meditation, what are your general qualities as just described? And then it goes on to talk about generosity. It describes generosity in a very beautiful way. You are now able to be generous in a way in which you've never been generous. You've surpassed. It's called you've attained the surpassing, the preeminent, the special level of generosity. Now, what could that be? This is verse 9. At this point, the 1st cause of full awakening. So the 1st cause in terms of the 1st bhumi. You've reached the 1st bhumi. You're on the great joy bhumi, the great joy ground. This 1st of the 10 levels, okay, of full awakening. And here the perfection of generosity will become preeminent. Okay, all right, I've already heard that. So there's some special quality of your generosity that you haven't had before. What could that be? Something special. There's more, something you haven't had on the path of accumulation, of the path of preparation. That's one part. But it explains more. It says, committed to giving away even your very flesh, your body. Giving becomes a sign to infer your unseen qualities. Okay, so it tells us two things. One thing is you've attained this surpassing, this great generosity that's different to before. What would that be? Secondly, it tells us that now you have qualities that to others are not obvious. No, they're not obvious. I mean, to someone on this same level or higher, well, yes, but to someone below, not obvious, very difficult. And that's true in everyday life. To a 5-year-old one, the qualities of a professor are not obvious, but to another professor, they're much more obvious, right? Much more. For someone on our level and our level of education, it's much more obvious what qualities the other person has. And of course, if one is greater education, etc., then in terms of academic knowledge, one is able to tell, oh, this much and this much not, in general. And this is just true for ordinary people. Similarly, also for someone who's reached, now you're on that 10th, on that first level as a bodhisattva. This morning you realize emptiness directly for the first time. You've eliminated already the 3 fetters, you've Arya Bodhisattva and all that. Now on top of that, on that level, you can now easily give away your body if necessary. And that becomes a sign. That becomes a sign for your special qualities, because you can only infer. It's like smoke is a sign for fire somewhere. So if you can't see the fire inside a house, what gives it away is the smoke. If someone can easily give away their body, that is a sign. What gives away? That is a sign they've reached that level of generosity. Therefore, it should, usually they say, it should not be practiced to easily give away your body. All right, yes, there are people who, without really thinking about it, they run into a burning building and they risk their own life to save someone else's life. For me, that is a sign. To me, that is a sign, and that person doesn't have to be a bodhisattva, but it shows that naturally, when we don't think too much, if we think too much about all the, oh my gosh, I'm saving my life, etc., the pain and all that I could go through, no, without having that whole balagan, that whole mess of like me and my and not, naturally there's a sense of like, I need to do something. There's this natural compassion. So to me, this is like, it shows this the nature of our mind, where when someone is in trouble, we may actually sacrifice our own life because that's the right thing to do. And a lot of people do that. However, here, this is more a spontaneous act. This is more like, I need to do so. But here, a bodhisattva, whether spontaneous or not, any time of day, they can easily cut off their body and give it to someone. Why? Because they're self-grasping due to their direct realization of how phenomena actually exist. They no longer hold on to the self in the same way. They no longer have that, oh, my possessions, this, that. They can easily give it away. And that's a good time to do that. I mean, it's not encouraged. It's not like saying, well, kill yourself and give away your flesh. It's not about that. It's more about the willingness to do that. Or like, I'm not even talking about, of course, a bodhisattva should hold on to their precious life because they can do so much. But giving away a kidney is just as difficult as giving a pebble. Okay, we can all basically give away a kidney, usually, well, yeah, we may not be as strong as before, etc. But, people have done that, but they easily give it away. And that's why in the text it said, don't actually give away your body or parts of your body easily unless you reach that level. Once you reach that level, things are quite different. But before that, when you give other things. Basically, start off slowly. Don't engage in a kind of giving where you think, oh no, I shouldn't have done that. Because that's the worst. Once you give something and you generate regret, not only is whatever you've given gone, the marriage is gone too, because you've regretted doing it. So if you've given something, at least make sure you don't generate regret. All right. So I explained that part. So committed to giving away even your own flesh, this becomes a sign. It's a giveaway to infer these qualities. So if a person really easily gives away anything, and especially their own body, their organs, what have you. I mean, unless they're like, I mean, that could be some mental problem, but like not talking about that. No, but like a person who's got no mental issues, etc., and easily with wisdom and being to both feet on the ground, etc., with great compassion, can give away their body. Well, definitely, you could kind of it's a giveaway that you've reached that level, so you can infer. But we've not yet talked about why on the level of the first ground, even without giving away your body, what makes your practice of generosity different to before. And Lama Tsongkhapa basically talks about it, that once you reach that level, your attachment to possessions, the greed or whatever, like being stingy, that which holds you from being generous, that's no longer there. Okay, there's no longer there in that. There's not occurrence, there's not the slightest occurrence, Lama Tsongkhapa says, of the attachment or this kind of stinginess that stands in contradiction to the perfection of generosity. So the kind of stinginess that ordinary people experience, that is gone. There's just this joy, and that will be explained later on. When you hear give, there's just joy, right? And we don't have that. We really don't have that. What I think is so interesting, I mean, forget about being generous. We don't like pay taxes. And we certainly don't like to pay our bills. I mean, in that case, actually, okay, paying taxes, it depends on what they're used for. If they're used for buying weapons, etc., we don't know. And we may stand against that. But that's often not really our concern, because they're often also used for the roads, and they're used for, for the infrastructure of a city. This what we use on a daily basis, and still we're trying hard to get around paying taxes, for instance. So there's this, like, maybe we should start happily paying taxes. Oh, I can pay taxes to the government, which is used to build schools and kindergartens, etc. Of course, it may also be used for other aspects. Okay, I may disagree with that, but I don't know. In the end, I don't know whether exactly my money, where it goes. Anyway, so it definitely also goes for things that are beneficial. But also, when I got bills to pay, I mean, to be happy to pay settle at least my bills. I mean, this is not even generosity. I'm basically just paying, well, what I spent. All right. However, well, there's more to generosity, of course, and this is what I want you to be your focus for this week. So it took me a while to get there. What I want you to do is practice generosity this week. Again, with bodhicitta. Bodhicitta should be a driving force. And it's not about giving away a lot of possessions and so forth. It's not about the amount. It's about the state of mind. Even if it's just giving a shekel to a person who's begging in the streets, even if it's just giving, and I'll talk more about the different types of giving, but just giving. It's the mind that wants to give, the mind that gives away things. It's this mental attitude. And you've probably heard the stories about people who had a hard time giving something, where you give from your right hand to the left hand. If you've got a really hard time to give, well, maybe start off with like giving from your right hand to your left hand, or visualize you give all these things. Just visualize them. That's a good start. Okay, but yes, definitely and of course, there's not just giving of material things. There's two other forms of giving. There's of course, giving of material objects. Then there's the giving of the Dharma, the giving of Buddhism. And we're not talking about preaching Buddhism. It's not about that, but being a living example of Buddhist practice. And that is part of what I want you to do, to generate great compassion, to generate bodhicitta as far as you can. That's also part of your practice of generosity. You're being a good example. If you want to give the Dharma, being a good example, of course, if you're asked to teach, if someone asks you questions, or even if you just give advice to someone, and without calling it Buddhism, this, that, and the other, because it's actually just psychology to give advice in accordance to that, non-violence, compassion, mindfulness, and so forth. So that would also be a type of generosity. And another type is the giving of fearlessness. Fearlessness means just helping other people, helping them when they're in trouble. So it doesn't have to be necessarily Dharma practice in that it's motivated by being liberated or enlightened, for instance. Not bad, but just when there are people in need. I mean, they give the example when there's a little insect about to drown, help the insect. Like help people, living beings, if their life is at stake. If you notice that, maybe make the time to, I don't know, help an insect, or when other people have problems, to lend them an ear. I mean, to just listen to their problems, to be there for them, just little things. So this is for this week, to practice generosity on a daily basis. If you can, 3 acts of material generosity, and it may be as much as giving a candy or maybe an apple, not a candy, to your child, right? Little things. It's not about what you give, it's little things. Giving of the Dharma, to, of course, practice the Dharma in different situations, practice patience, etc. It's a type of giving, being a good example to others, and very important to be a good example to family, etc. And of course, to give support, to give to other people who experience problems and fears, etc. And so to kind of be there for them. If you could do this whenever it comes the opportunity, so really focus on giving, but again, with bodhicitta, with the wish, may I become enlightened for the welfare of all sentient beings. May I become enlightened. All right. And you can even visualize, of course, you can take it further. If you can't practice, and you can do so much with visualizing, it's just how you train your mind, because we've heard this already. Generosity is a mental state. The act of giving something is not necessarily generosity. And here, also very important, in verse 9, Thupten Jinpa says, committed to giving away even his very flesh. But this word here can be also translated as respectfully giving away even his very flesh. I think the word respect is so important. One of my teachers has always stressed this. When you give, this is part of your homework, if you like, for this coming week, to give with respect and to take it a notch higher, to take it a little further, to give with gratefulness that the other person, with gratitude, that the other person gives you the opportunity to give. Okay, so oftentimes generosity, it has this nasty little appendix, kind of like you feel like the other person owes you something, at least a thank you, or at least, something. You want a certain degree of gratitude. That's a naughty, that's a not a very nice appendix, if you like. It comes along with that generosity. So to totally pay attention to that and see whether it arises, or just to make sure that it doesn't arise after you've completed the giving, to generate the thought, thank you for giving me the opportunity to be generous. Thank you for giving, to really generate that gratitude. And of course, to give with respect. But of course, this means different, like, for instance, if you give to a beggar, if there's someone on the street, oftentimes we just kind of throw them the money, hand them the money. They annoy us because, I don't know, I mean, if you've been to India, the beggars are there a little bit more forceful than they maybe are in Israel. I don't know. But like, they may run after you and they may call after you. And at some point you're like, oh, just leave me alone, and give them a few rupees and think, oh, I was so generous. God, I was so generous again. I hope everyone saw it. So this happens. I know from my own experience. I don't know what it's like for you, but, from my own experience, saying that, oh, you kind of feel like, well, I've just given them some. But that is not giving with respect. And no matter how tattered they are, how torn they are, no matter, to give with respect, to not look down on the other person, but rather look up to them, and if possible, generate generosity. Gratitude. Generate gratitude that this person has given you the opportunity to help them. If you, as part of the practice of, um, what is it? Giving fearlessness, helping another person in need, which is just as, if not more important than giving of material objects, to give it with gratitude. Thank you. Thanking, I mean, mentally, it may be a little bizarre, maybe a little bit like you're like a friar or something, like a sucker. Oh, I helped you, thank you for being, I mean, maybe a little bit too much, you don't want to go. It's just a mental state. You can still, of course, receive their thank you and be gracious about it, but to also have a sense of gratitude towards this other person and show that respect and gratitude. So this is what I would like you to do the whole week, and I try to do the same. I'm not trying to give you something that is difficult, etc. So if you could please note this in your calendar, if there is an app that kind of reminds you every now and then. Of course, giving, yes, that's the focus, but bodhicitta should not be. Bodhicitta now, if you've done the practices so far, you should have become a little bit better. It should become a little bit easier. This is still this thread. And before every act of giving, please make sure you generate just the thought, may I become enlightened for the welfare of all sentient beings. If you just do that, okay, if you feel it from the depth of your heart, great. But even if you just go through the motions, is it motion or notion? I get confused. But anyway, if you just go through the motion of doing that, well, that's all right. You're turning it into a habit. Okay, that's part of it, and that's what meditation really means, to familiarize yourself. Now, of course, on the meditation cushion, and we'll do this together, this should be your preparation in the morning. Okay, generosity. This week, it's generosity. All right. The 3 types of generosity: giving with respect and gratitude. But of course, in the back of your mind, that is conjoined with influence, is your practice of generosity. It should be influenced by bodhicitta. Excuse me. Okay. I hope that's clear. That's what I would like you to do. Okay. But to continue a little bit further, so at this point, the first cause of full awakening, the first cause once you become an Arya, is the perfection of generosity, because now it becomes surpassing. Why? Because this little bit of stinginess that keeps us, well, that's gone for you now as this bodhisattva. Committed to giving away even your own flesh, giving becomes a sign, becomes how can I put it? Becomes a sign on the basis of which you can infer that they, or someone can infer that you have these unseen qualities. I use this on purpose here, you, because I want you to kind of put yourself into the shoes of that bodhisattva and make this your own practice. Great. All right, that's the first verse on generosity. And then the next verse on generosity is, and those verses, they are from the point of view, so you explain generosity on the lower levels. It's saying, even if you're just an ordinary guy, okay, generosity is really special. So the next verses, verse 10 and 11, they're basically saying, well, of course, on that level, it's incredible, but generosity is really helpful on other levels too. And here it says, all living beings eagerly yearn for happiness. Yeah, that's true. Yet for humans, there is no happiness without resources. So we cannot be happy without certain material objects. So please don't think that Buddhism and renunciation is about living in a cage or a cave, not a cage, but living in a cave with nothing. No, that makes life really difficult, really complicated. So you need to have basic things. So there's nothing wrong with resources. But how do you get the necessary resources? Through generosity. Material resources in turn come about from generosity. Knowing this, the Buddha spoke on generosity first. So you need a certain level of comfort. You certainly need a certain things. And those objects that you have, well, you get them through generosity. What you have now is the result of generosity in the past, and what you need for the future comes from generosity now. And if you can give away a little bit that's extra, that's great. Try and do that. And even with the bits that you right now cannot give away, all right, of course, we're not on that level. We still have that clinging onto, but a little trick that you can make it virtuous. One little trick would be, I cannot give it away. This object I cannot give away, but I'll use it for the welfare of all sentient beings. I'll use it in order to make this a tool in one way or another to help you to become enlightened for the welfare of sentient beings. If you can really just generate that thought, okay, so to bring bodhicitta in everything you do, even in not being able to let go, right? Because, well, you can't force it. You shouldn't force it. Don't force it. If you're not willing, if you don't feel like, oh, this is a burden, don't give it away, all right? Because forcing yourself is not going to do it. There's no joy. And when you feel, oh, I've got all this stuff, but I'm using it for the welfare of all sentient beings. Very important. Okay, great. Now, great, I'm saying great because I'm not totally over time. So there's still time, plenty of time to meditate. Unless there are any questions, any urgent questions, maybe I will hear one question. It gives me also a sense how confused you are or not. Hopefully it's not too bad. But yeah, you're welcome. If someone likes to kind of indicate whether they got a question. No? Okay, good. No, there doesn't seem to be a question. You can, of course, also always write it. I'm trying to read the comments at the side. I now have them here. So if there's anything, 5 new messages I see. Okay, let's see where I want to understand. Okay, great. All right, so if there's nothing, let's start to meditate now. In preparation, of course, for the coming week. Okay, practice of generosity. So we'll start again as usual before we start the analytical meditation. We do a few moments of breathing, a few minutes, just to calm the mind, be more focused, become more focused. So now let's start this meditative session on generosity by first reigniting or regenerating the mind of enlightenment. Just take a few moments to generate bodhicitta. Shortly reflect upon the different sufferings of all sentient beings, followed by the wish for sentient beings to be free from that suffering, and then the aspiration, may I become enlightened. In order to be able to fulfill this wish to free all sentient beings from their suffering. So take a few moments to give rise to bodhicitta. So once you've got mind of enlightenment, now let's focus on generosity. First, just visualize giving away whatever is extra in your life, just material objects that you don't really need. Imagine that you just give them away. But give them to those in need and give them with gratitude that those who are in need give you the opportunity to practice generosity. Give away clothes that you no longer need. Furniture that is in the way. Pots and pans that you never use. Just visualize giving them away. Part of your salary. Even if it's just 1%. And now visualize you give away more than that. A little more money. And more of the objects that you own. Giving to those in need. With a deep sense of gratitude for having the opportunity to give. But but also pleasure at being able to help them. And then visualize giving everything you own. Your house, your car, your garden, your flat, everything you own. You give it to sentient beings and it gives them instant happiness and pleasure. And then think you give away your time to other sentient beings. To lend them an ear when they're in trouble, listen to their problems. To give your precious time. To those who experience fear, worry, and other problems. And again, be grateful that you have this opportunity to serve others in that way. And finally, visualize giving away your body. Giving away your organs, your heart, your liver, saving countless lives. Your eyes to someone who's been blinded. Your face to someone who's been disfigured in an accident. Your skin to someone who's been burned in a fire. your blood, your bones, your liver, kidney, all that. You give to sentient beings and save countless lives. And generate the sense of gratitude. Thank you that all these different people in need have given me the opportunity to be generous. And so finally, let's dedicate whatever positive potential we've created by generating a generous mind, a mind of giving, in order to familiarize ourselves with this practice. May this become one of the causes that enables us to purify or remove whatever needs to be removed in our mind, so that we'll attain the enlightened state of a Buddha for the welfare of all sentient beings. Also, while we keep the mind of dedication, we'll read the dedication prayer. May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the hopeless find hope, constant happiness and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all the medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and the people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then, may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. Okay, all right. Well, one last thought I had. I understand you have a WhatsApp group as part of this particular class. So as a suggestion, because it is hard when you have a stressful life to remember the homework, and let's see whether this works or not, whoever has a thought on generosity, maybe just a proverb, maybe just a saying, to put it in this group, and then others can read it and just be reminded of this week's practice. So you may just have a thought. It shouldn't be very long because it takes too long to read all those, but just a short thought, anything, a saying by the Buddha, a quote from a text, or just some insight that you've had, share it with the group, and hopefully that reminds everyone in this group to continue with this practice for this particular week. Okay, great. We're on time almost. So I wish you a great week full of generosity. And then I see you again, talk to you again.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you
very
very
much.
much, Geshe-ma.
Thank you.
We'll see us in the new year.
That's right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thanks, bye.